Oh my god, there's a metal worker who just pulled up outside my window. Please. Please be chill. Tool grinder man. Alright, we got a really late ads from Twitch, so we're just waiting another 30 seconds here. And we'll get started. I'm gonna pick some different music. Hey, Diginanigans. Alright, the ads are over on Twitch. What are we gonna listen to today? Maybe some like chill jazz would be fun. We're gonna get started here in just a second. Oh yeah. That's the stuff. How's it going, everyone? Oh, my lights. I got told how my lighting setup should be, which is like a key light on one side, and then, you know, it was explained to me how lights should be set up. Instead, I did this, which is so flat. But, I don't know. I think it's fine. We aren't recording professional video here. We're just live streaming. How's it going? It's Wednesday. How's everyone doing? I feel like I've already had a whole work week in just the last few days. And now I've got the rest of the week to get through still, so that's fun. That feels fun for me. I said this week was refactor week. We did a bunch of it yesterday. We rewrote the autotiling system to be able to take multiple block buffers. What we need to do now is we need to finish that up. We need a process for merging block buffers into tile map data. And then we need to alter the tool system so that it actually stores those separately. And that will be interesting. That's probably what we'll work on today. We did talk a lot yesterday about tiling, about some issues with the auto tiling, especially when it came to overlays, like the selection overlay. There's definitely some problems with that. I'm going to save that for later in the week because I want to do a little bit of offline experimentation of trying out some different shapes and see what tessellates. It seems like we might have just lucked into the only shape that tessellates cleanly. Skywalk 1411, how's it going? Blazing in here, as it were. Not much. It's we're kind of doing some refactoring of our auto tiling here. How are you doing, Skywalk? All right, so we swapped all this stuff out. We actually got rid of the old function. So we're fully committed now. One thing we didn't refactor is the tile grid section. We're just doing this whole thing, which I think is fine. to treat the tile grid as one whole compressed process because it's a lot simpler. And by the grid, I mean the overlay. So we have like a separate process for the overlay that's more self-contained. It's a little awkward, but it's fine. That epic editor. Yeah, the tile editor, that's what we're doing. Hey, Stupid Hawker, it's time to hunt for dinner. Oh, I hope you bag a good one. Hope you bag a nice dinner. It is like almost lunchtime here. All right, so what we're gonna do today, I think, is right now we're doing this pass once with, right now we're just saying the block buffer, but now we're gonna split it because we're actually distinguishing between the settled blocks and the preview blocks. And so what we wanna do is we want to pass both sets of block buffers through this process and then generate the tile cell data from multiple sets. And then we output it. I probably want to parameterize this a little bit better. Right now we're working on just member variables just to save on memory, since they're just dictionaries that we reuse every time. But for now, I think that's fine. That might be less fine once we're managing a large number of these, but maybe it's actually even more critical to do it that way just to save on allocations. We'll see. Right now, we only have to worry about 2 sets. So instead of block buffer, we're going to be talking about variable settled blocks. Stupid Hawker, did I make progress on the outlines? Not yet. We're kind of just leaving them where they are, which they're in an okay place. I purposely made them worse because I undid one edge case, one thing we were doing to make them cleaner. Like I made the outlines worse for the floor. So I need to repair that. I do like that we get this like checkerboard look now. But I need to think more about how we're going to do that. Diginanigans, you've been toying around a bit with making music programmatically with Strudel. Not sure how easy it is to get more chill, relaxing music. Pretty interesting to get techno or dance vibes. Interesting. Strudel. The SEO for that is terrible. With Strudel, you can expressively write dynamic music pieces. It's an official port of the Tidal Cycles pattern language to JavaScript. Interesting. Yeah, let me know. Please share some if you make some that you're happy with sharing. I'd love to see the result of that kind of thing. Hey, Ryson. How's it going? Yeah, so it's like okay for the most part. We got to fix the floor thing that I purposely made worse, but we still have all these edge cases where the outer lines are disappearing. It's mainly in this case, but it is also in this case. So like the outer edge is not showing correctly. I don't know how big of a problem this is because the selection overlay is not generally going to stick around. Like in this case, it mostly works. But for the editor, it does stick around. But when you're in play mode, it's just going to flash and then go away. And all that'll be left will be the individual things that you've selected that are selectable. So I don't know how much effort I want to put into making this really crisp right now. I definitely want to fix it a little bit. But yeah, I think what we're going to work on instead at the moment is continuing with the main work, which is separating out the preview blocks from the settled blocks and then recombining them in the autotiler so that they can autotile correctly without necessarily existing in the same block buffer. That's the thing we're going to work on today, since we definitely know we need that. So we'll say, I do really want to find a better solution for I wonder if when you create a block buffer, because a block buffer is a struct, right? It's not a class, it's a struct. I wonder if it's possible when you declare a block buffer to get a span. That's probably the way we could do this, because I don't like having to pass around the buffer and the span separately. So what if we just make it something that's declared or that's created? The buffer ID is not guaranteed to exist, though, at creation time. Maybe if it doesn't, it's just null. Like if the buffer ID doesn't give us anything, it's just null. Let's put that to the side, but I would like to do that. That would be an interesting. That would be a simple, nice little thing to do. Sounds like a German bread thing. Yeah, strudel does sound like that, doesn't it? Bryson, how was GodotCon? You missed the streams that I recapped it. Oh, it was awesome. It was really cool. It wasn't huge, but it was so good. Let me see if I can pull some of the pictures back up. Yeah, I'm a little upset. Everyone signed this at the end. You can see Acerola, Practical NPC, a bunch of people on here. I had to leave a little early to catch my plane, so I didn't see this and I didn't get to sign it, but a bunch of people came out. Super cool people. It was in a really cool venue. I mean, it's in a cool city, but the venue was really great. It's the Microsoft Nerd. Here's Emmy giving a keynote at the beginning with some of the local Boston organizers. Everyone's posting their food and pictures of the city. There was a great little showcase area where you could play other games. Memori was being showcased there. They had a speed run competition, which is great. There was some swag, shirts and pins and stuff. Super cool. Yeah, a bunch more people showcasing. It was really good. It was a really great event. Here's the showcase area, the garage. This is Jess Covino live streaming the day. Yeah, this is just the little showcase section. Over to the right, they have like a hackerspace, which is really cool. We had a whole floor of this big building. Here's like the kitchen lounge area where people were just hanging out. I'm back here. You perfectly can't see me. I'm sitting next to my friend Sean, who's a rocket engineer who also makes Godot games. Yeah, it was a great... Cambridge is really cool. It's very high-tech. It's very high-tech. It's very different than the rest of Boston. Oh, it was also Boston Game Dev Week, so they did a bunch of outdoor stuff. They did play testing and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, Boston's a beautiful city. I would love to go back next year. Yeah, this is more kind of what you expect and what a lot of the city was, like the brick and stuff. But the Cambridge area is high tech. It is very high tech. It was a really great convention. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull 2 different buffers out. We're going to say preview blocks equals game.world.get component block buffer game.world.preview blocks component.flags.block buffer. I hate that you define the T and pass in the flag. Kind of hate that. I wonder if there's a way to do like a lookup so that you don't need to pass in the flag and you can just operate off the T, the type. Kind of gross, but we did it. So we're going to call this preview buffer for now. And then we'll separately pull out the blocks. I don't want to do this in the long term, but we're going to do it for now because it's the easy way to do it. let's say preview blocks equals preview buffer dot read only. And then we'll separately pull out the settled. So how do we want to do? We probably want to do the settled blocks first. So we'll say variable settled buffer. Basically the same thing here. How's everyone doing? Read only span, block, settled blocks, settled buffer dot, not dot buffer, silly thing. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're going to copy this over. We're gonna do this twice. This is actually something that we can do. It's actually something we only want to do if we're in the edit state, I guess. So we say if game.peak state is equal to game.state.edit. Oh, how is the grid overlay gonna work? Oh my god, what is it playing? Playing Amazing Grace? No thanks. I did not think about this. About how we're gonna do the overlay with this system. That's unfortunate that I did not think about that. We maybe need to reroute this process through the same steps. Or we can somehow figure out how to do it here. I don't really want to create I would rather just interpret the merging. I would rather not create another set of... Like, I would rather not create a second span that's the two spans merged. I would rather avoid having to do that constantly. Because I could imagine a world where we actually want to do this more often than just during edit time. For now, the only use case I can imagine is edit time. So we need to break that process for now. So right now we're going to just do this every time. And then if we're in edit mode, we'll also do this. Should I rewrite this to be game.state.peak? Maybe. Like have state be like a separate thing. Because then you could do game.state.push or game.state.pop. Game.state.peak. That's an easy refactor. It's refactor week. Maybe we'll do a lot of little refactors. I really want to refactor the tooling system. The way we process this whole mess of this giant nested switch statement as we parse command arguments. Quite a gross way to do this. But it works, so we'll see. And it has a very specific requirement for how it works. Like the tool system is only ever going to be so complicated. I should probably rename it something. Could be the block subsystem of the edit system. I don't know. Kind of every system is a subsystem, so I don't really want to do it that way. We might want to introduce the concept of system groups, which we don't currently have, except in like an implicit way. All right, so if we do this, this should just work. This should do nothing, but it might cause catastrophic failure. because it might not be able to handle an empty buffer. We'll see if it can. Probably going to cause catastrophic failure the way I've written this. Or it might just work. It'd be pretty cool if it just worked. Huh. Okay. That seems fine. What we do need to do is we need to start using the limited AABB as well. So that we're not... Because right now we're pivoting around the world origin and not around the construction bounds origin. So we should be pivoting around the midpoint of the construction, not around the world's midpoint. So that's another thing I would like to do. I wouldn't consider that a refactor, so maybe we don't do that yet. Shenanigans, you posted a demo song made with Strudel in the Discord under the resources section. It's a REPL that can be played around with. You didn't make the specific demo. You were just playing around with it. You're far from a musician of any sort. That's the kind of person that wants to make a, a music generator. I spent years when I started doing game dev obsessed with procedural generation of like art and stuff like that. I still am a little bit. Like, I still want to figure out some ways of like automatically building the tile atlases, but I've definitely come around more to like hand drawing the art. But I'm really interested in procedural sound generation as well. Procedural music. Hey, Frosto. How's it going? Welcome in. The thing I'm interested in trying is bespoke audio something. Bespoke, what was this called? It's called like a modular synth kind of thing. Bespoke synth. I want to try this. This is supposed to be cool for creating maybe something that would be more considered like ambient sound stuff than it would be for creating like curated like music. But I'm really interested in trying this for ambient stuff and then maybe funneling it into Fmod. Pretty interested in trying this. Haven't had the time. And I'd probably be better off starting out with like a more traditional DAW. Or do I want to make a music gen tool or use an existing one? Yeah, I'm not sure, Prosto. We were talking, there's DIGITAL over in the YouTube, and they're doing some stuff with Strudel, which is another music generation tool. And so we were just kind of talking about it. It's something I have on my radar, but it's definitely not something I'm like actively working on at this moment. But if you have experience at it, I would love to hear some stuff. We have a resources channel in the Discord too that we're using to talk about this as well. But how are you doing? Happy Wednesday. You did a small synth. That's cool. That's still super cool. Okay, so this just works. It just passes through this because there's nothing in the buffer, and it doesn't seem to be causing any issues. Probably because start... I'm actually not sure. Oh, it's because the block span. The early out. So it's going through this process of all this stuff, and it's just earlying out. Okay, so it is wasting time, but that's okay, because I don't want to have a system that tells me whether the preview buffer is empty or not. We just want to limit it based on state. Oh, we currently have a game.state, and it's just an enum rather than like a class. I'm okay with doing it this way for now. Otherwise, I'd need to put the enum in the... Yeah, that would be annoying. Okay. So now what we need to do, now that we can process the block buffers differently, at the moment we don't have... There's no merging happening, so I feel like we're going to run into some crazy conflicts. But maybe not. Yeah, here's the thing that's not happening is they're not being compared. They're only looking amongst themselves. And that's not going to work. That's going to cause some crazy stuff. So maybe the only solution is to converge them and make them a single buffer. Or at least make them a single... Yeah, we might need to create a new buffer. But we don't have to recreate it every time, per se. We could reserve a buffer. That's our autotiling buffer. And we could just write all of the blocks into that buffer. We can merge them together and use those. We could call it like merged blocks or something like that. Really small, tiny tool to make simple melodies, but from scratch, generating samples, not using any tools. Oh, sick. That's really cool. That's really cool, Prosto. All right, so let's split the buffers in the tool, and then we'll come back to the autotiler and figure out how to merge them back together. It's going to look wonky for a while, but that is okay. So we've split it here. We're only using the settled blocks, so we essentially need to replace that with the preview blocks. So for something like copy, so it's going to be this one. Oh, I wonder if the select is only going to be in the preview. That doesn't actually make sense. That actually needs to be the settled blocks. That makes sense, because you can't select and preview at the same time, so that seems fine. Place blocks in, preview. Same deal here. Replace reveal block at, replace clipboard, replace erase blocks in. That's settled blocks because we're cutting. All right, so replace this one, this one, this one, and this one. Eraser. So when we erase something, we reveal... Why do we reveal the block at? Oh, because we're moving around. I don't love how we're doing the eraser. Oh, this is just when we select the eraser. Right. Okay. So here you would... So this would all be preview block stuff. Oh, that's interesting. So the preview essentially needs to overwrite the settled so that we get the correct behavior. Because like if you're erasing, if you toggle the eraser, you need to be erasing from the settled blocks. But if we're trying to separate those out so that these temporary changes aren't impacting the settled thing, we need like the autotiler merger to see, oh, hey, is the preview block here? Oh, Jesus. Okay. Because if the preview block is empty, that's different than it being erased. I actually don't know how we're going to do that. Okay. We have to come back to that. We're going to have to think about that a little more. Because you can't just say, hey, this block is empty in the preview. Let's not show it in the settled, because that would just erase everything in the settled block. That would just not show any of it. We need something else. The erasure needs to be like a thing that you can see. That's interesting. And I'm not sure how we're going to do that. That's actually a crazy edge case that we need to account for. That's not even an edge case. That's like a major... Maybe the eraser is going to have to work differently than the other tools. I don't want that to be the case, but that might have to be the case. Let's get through the rest of this and then circle back. Oh god, I said circle back. I'm going to corporate jargon hell. We need to circle back and get our and align our vision with the synergy to achieve innovation before the end of the quarter to maximize value. We've got to create value for the shareholders. That's really what we need to be doing today.
Most illogical.
Says you. But I don't think you have an MBA, do you? Smooth in a second. I think if you had an MBA, this would make sense.
Your logic was impeccable, Captain.
Yeah, thank you. How's it going? All right, so the hover stuff can very clearly go in the preview blocks. Let's just not support erasing for a minute. I think that's what we're going to do. We're just going to try to not erase anything for now. We really need to have erase as like a tool, but it's weird. It's going to need to be like a positive markup. It's going to need to be something that exists in the preview block. Maybe that will be like some kind of Boolean that we can set in the state that we're in erasing mode. And then so it positively adds the blocks to the preview, but then negates them when we merge. That could work. That could work. Okay, so hover. So how does hover work? Hover should only operate on the preview blocks, right? Preview blocks at the moment. Okay, that's fine. Oh, we do need to acknowledge the fact that preview blocks are not going to rotate. So this coords equals preview blocks.aabb.view absolute. I actually need to change this. This is something we're going to refactor today. Maybe not today, but this week. I distinguish between view absolute and view local, or no, view relative. I should probably change that to be like global or local, just to make it a little more understandable. I like relative and absolute, but absolute already means something, which is consistent with what we're currently doing, because right now the blocks, the AABB that we're using is not the AABB, but the tile system is always absolute. Skywalk, am I talking to YouTube chat or something? Yeah, it's the soundboard. I'm talking to Smooth in a second, who's using the soundboard. You can hear those, right? I'm not the only one. Oh my god. We're getting a raid. Quick, change everything that we did. Change it back. How's it going? How's it going, raiders?
Maximum warp.
Hey, Sorcery Story. Welcome in, raiders. Welcome in, Sorcery. How's it going? It's been a minute. We got back from GodotCon last week, GodotCon Boston. I would really love to make it to one of the European GodotCons next. But yeah, we're back. We're calling this Refactor Week, so we've just been refactoring a bunch of stuff. I wanted to change it back in case I needed to demo what we're working on. I wanted to make sure it worked. Yeah, things are all right. We're dealing with some... We started doing arbitrary like overlays on our tiles, and so we're doing some refactoring to make all of that work better. So we've just been working on that for the moment. So like, the idea is that when we're building something, we want the thing that we're building, or the thing that we have built, to be separate from the thing that we're currently considering. So like if we make this whole nonsense here, Somehow I made the exact same thing I built last time. So if we make this whole nonsense and then we copy this. Oh no, the copy isn't working. Okay, no. So if I copy this, we want to put that on a different buffer than the stuff that already exists. We don't want them to all be stored in the same buffer. So if I paste that, oh man. I tried to undo what I refactored, and I very clearly did not succeed. We didn't get the doors. Oh, no, the doors are here. They're missing the ceiling. Okay, phew. Phew. Problem was user error. I forgot to bring the ceiling over. But yeah, we're working on creating separate workspaces and having them be merged together in the autotiler. Because right now it's all one workspace, which is obviously a problem in some cases. Yeah, nothing like a good refactor. But yeah, how's your game going? I haven't been able to catch your stream in a while. Oh, I got someone to ban over here. We've got a spam bot. Load the photon torpedoes. You're ready. Aim. Oh, I was trying to ready aim fire and I just hit fire.
He's dead, Jim.
He is dead. Slain. But yeah, that's what we're working on this week. A lot of refactoring different things before we move on to some new features and stuff. But I appreciate the raid. I understand it's probably late. I'm gonna raid and run. All right, so that so far worked. The thing that we're scared about doing, which we need to do next, is we need to... Right now, the tool system is still writing all of the changes into the one workspace. So now, the thing we're trying to work on right now is splitting that so that certain things get written into the preview workspace, which is the blocks hovering around showing you what it would look like if you placed something. We're trying to create that as a different workspace from the stuff that's actually being placed and committed. So right now, everything's being placed into that one workspace. We did identify an edge case, which is a problem. It's not really an edge case either. It's like a pretty regular case. You're working on the art for the game. You're slowly tackling all the stuff you need. Apologies for the noise. There's like literally a metal worker right outside my window who pulled up minutes after I went live. I looked out my window and I was like, love it. You love to see it. This guy with a tool grinder in the back of his truck. You're working on the art for the game. Oh, you're starting to work on your own art? Swap out the placeholder stuff? You're slowly tackling all the stuff you need. It's a lot. Yeah, I imagine you pretty much made the whole game with placeholder stuff, and now now you're going back. That's crazy. That's very exciting though. So right now you got crops, stone walls, grass, stone floors, all the decorations for the houses, including pots, wicker baskets, etc., etc. Yeah, that's huge. That sounds really great. I want to see some of that. That's going to be really cool. I can't wait to see what the final art style. Because yeah, originally it was very Kenny, right? All right, so my confusion here is what we do about erasing. So if we're erasing something, right now, because we've just been working in a single workspace, in a shared workspace, we've just been deleting what's there, right? So we need to do it differently if we're doing it with two workspaces. We can't just say, hey, there's an empty space in the preview buffer, so obviously delete the thing that's in the regular buffer when or don't show it, is what I mean. But that won't work because the preview buffer is mostly empty. It's mostly empty blocks. So we need to actually do something else. And the only thought I have is that we could put in the positive version of the eraser block because we know what kind of eraser you're using. Like the eraser still has a block associated with it. Because sometimes you want to erase just the walls or the walls and the floors or whatever. So we could put that in and then have a variable, have a bool somewhere, probably in global state, unfortunately, that says we're in erase mode. And then it will just, when it's merging the preview blocks with the settled blocks, if we're in erase mode, it will negate the block in the preview block. Like it will see the block in the preview block and remove it from the settled block. That could work. That could work. Sorcery, you're enjoying the process of making the art and also dreading it at the same time. You're hoping that you'll put those assets in the game. You don't hate everything. Oh, no, so you're working on all the art separately. You haven't started like integrating it yet. You really want to go to a Godot con at some point. You think it'd be pretty cool. Only when you have a demo working, though. You'd feel out of place otherwise. No, just who needs... I mean, there were only so many people showcasing. Not everyone. Actually, only a small minority got tables to showcase. But yeah, it would be cool. It would be cool. But yeah, this was the first Godot con in North America. So that was fun. Probably happen again next year. I would love to make it out to one of the European ones at some point. Because I know, especially in the current climate, it's like the international travel to the US is pretty daunting for people. So I think it'd be cool to go see what the scene's like in... Because the Godot scene in Europe is a lot more mature, my understanding, as far as, you know, the Godot con that has been running there for 5 or 6 years already, something like that. Something like since 2017 or 2018 or something. Which now I realize when I say it is like 7 or 8 years ago. Yeah, it was really cool. I was surprised. Oh, maybe I wasn't surprised, but I enjoyed it a lot. All right, so what we're doing, we're redoing the thing that I undid before. So we're saying, so this line, instead of writing to the settled blocks, we want to write to the preview blocks. Whenever we copy, we want to do that. And then the deselect should happen on the settled blocks because selection is only relevant for settled blocks. So yeah, finding the distinction, splitting this into two is relatively easy. Figuring out which goes where is definitely the harder part. Clipboard. Oh no, the clipboard pulls from the settled blocks. Oh, I had this wrong before. We need to pull from the settled blocks, but then we need to show it in the preview blocks. Cut is an interesting case. Cut, I think, needs to directly rip those blocks out of the settled blocks rather than try to like erase them from... Yeah, that's a weird case. Yeah, so we reveal blocks. We deselect blocks in the settled blocks. We copy from the settled blocks to the clipboard. This is questionable to me, but for now we're gonna erase the blocks from the settled blocks. I wonder how I'm gonna do my click drag movement, because I really wanted to support click drag, but click drag is like an operation directly on the single buffer. Like you're grabbing a bunch of stuff and moving it around. I kind of wanted that to support that, but I feel like that's going to be kind of hard. Because that's an operation directly on the settled block. Like there's no preview of that. Like you're just committing those changes every time. Maybe I can't support that. I would really like to, though. But that's going to be a pain in the ass. Maybe we can do it. Maybe we can do it. Maybe we can have another flag where we flag whether the preview blocks are exclusive or not. That doesn't really make sense. I don't know. There's enough weird edge cases we're running into where I'm having a little doubt that this is the correct approach, but I think it's correct. I already did a lot of refactoring. I want to at least try it before we decide that it was the wrong direction to go. So the eraser, yep. So this erase block at thing, I think we're gonna need to change how this works. I don't think this is gonna work in the current form. I don't think we need to make some crazy changes. I think we do need to make some changes before we can support erasing. This is wrong, actually. There we go. Yeah, this erasing thing is a problem. Which is okay. We can actually get rid of the distinction between erasing a block and placing a block. For now, we're going to leave this in here. Yeah, this is a scary refactor. I generally try to avoid refactors that totally break everything. I really don't like doing it, especially live on stream. Why are we getting the span? Do we not have access to that? No, I guess we don't. Hey, Rhiannon Journey. Glad to see I'm still at it. You need to go take care of dinner. I'll leave a lurk. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks, Sorcery. Thank you for the raid. See you later. Big Boy Bod High. I probably butchered that pronunciation. Is there a reason you're using C# instead of GDScript, or is it just a preference thing? Welcome into the channel. There is a reason. We've actually split our code base. So we are using GDScript for specific things. So we're kind of doing a weird thing here where we have... Let me show you this, the scene architecture a little bit to make a little more sense. So we have like, here's our tree. Again, sorry for the sound, this metal worker outside. Hopefully you don't hear it. So there's this game scene, which is like the root node. And then we have the board, which is like all the pieces on the board. We're doing kind of an isometric 3D take on FTL faster than light. So we have kind of this tile, this 3D tile volume thing that we're working with. So this is where all the tile sets will be, the tile map layers and like the nodes and all that stuff. So this is anything that gets drawn. Then there's also a UI branch, but this is just stuff that is getting rendered. So we've kind of split the rendering side of things from the simulation side of things. So if we go back to here, we have our game node. This is our boundary between the Godot side, the unmanaged side, and the C#.NET managed side. So we're actually not doing any API calls from C# really, except here in this node. This is where we move stuff back and forth. So input comes through here, rendering information goes back out through here. So everything goes through here. But then once we're in here, we have an entity component system. So we have a world. So we have a game world. And this allows us to do entity component system stuff. This allows us to have very lightweight simulation. So not every simulation element needs to be, you know, a node or a resource or whatever. We're not processing it in the kind of object update way that typically a Unity or a Godot would operate. We're doing it much more in the systems approach. So don't ask me why I decided to make an entity component system in C#. There is not a good answer. It's just the language I'm more familiar with. So that's why we're in C#. But we do use GDScript. Like GDScript we have GDScript for our tile map layers and for all our UI elements, and we have like a global that's like our input handler. So we've just kind of divided the domains. Kind of an awkward thing. Some regrets architecting it this way. If I was a real pro, what I would have done is I would have written I actually wouldn't have written an ECS at all. I would have just implemented Flex in C++ for Godot. Like I would have tried to bind Flex in a GD extension so I could use it that way. And then, or whatever other ECS solution that you want to use. And then I would just use that directly in GD script. I would just call that from GD script. But I'm not a C++ programmer, so that was kind of too uncomfortable an idea for me. And so that's why we're here. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly of why we're here. Or maybe it's the good, the bad, and the weird. I hope that answers your question, and welcome in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Sorry, I never do that. Hit that bell, y'all. Okay, so we're in the middle of this refactor that I'm scared about. We're in the middle of a very terrifying refactor that I don't think I have the right hold on it. But I'm hoping this is going to be okay. So we need more settled blocks. So when we change the palette, this is also on the preview blocks. Lawrence Both, thank you for the follow. Thank you both for the follow. Big boy. That's so cool. Didn't know you could do that in Godot. Project looks super cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's still, I would say early days. We've been working on it about a year. We probably picked the production direction that we were going in at the end of last year, which is when we started working on the entity component system and stuff. But yeah, we've been currently working on, I don't know if you were here when I was showing the editor tool, but we mostly are working on an editor tool for building these ships, for building all the blocks and laying out the ships. And that's kind of step one in kind of our roadmap here. Obviously, Faster Than Light is a huge influence. I love that my Obsidian just opened up to that. But yeah, that's kind of step one on our roadmap here, which is the tile block editor. And we spent a lot of time on this, but it's a pretty crucial thing. And it's kind of the first step on the road to our MVP, our minimum viable product for our alpha launch that we're going to do for free on itch. Hopefully in about a year, I think we'll be ready. I would like to hit it March of next year, but I think that's going to be pushing it. So we really need to wrap up this editor. Then we need to move on to simulation, like simulating power moving throughout the ship, handling pathfinding requests from crew members, all that sort of thing. That's the next big chunk. We'll probably spend many months on that. And then the last thing to do is to write up a scenario editor that lets us put these ships next to each other so they can fight and stuff. And have encounters, you know, the way you would have an encounter in FTL. So yeah. I need to start, I'm thinking, I recently thought I should make a Kanban board for each of these. Make a tile block editor board, make a shipboard simulation board, make an editor board, make a 9-box battlefield board. And just start filling in the tasks that we think we need to do to get through these, at least for the first two here. Because we're kind of starting to move from open-ended prototyping phase to a more purposeful production phase. We spent a long time exploring how we're going to do things. And there's still definitely a lot of prototyping left to do in terms of how the simulation's going to work and stuff. But I think we need to start getting more serious about the production side of things. That's my thought. That's my answer to the question no one asked. Oh man, so this hidden blocks and this active blocks thing, this is going to be totally different. Right now, these are two dictionaries that keep track of changes. And I think these only refer to the preview blocks now. I'm actually going to need to go through here and make sure that this relates solely to the preview blocks. because that's what we're tracking essentially. And then they get moved over. So like paste here, there needs to be a step here where we transfer everything from the preview buffer into the block buffer, or into the settled block buffer. So we transfer everything that's like considered but not permanent, and we transfer all of that into like the permanent buffer, which we store all of our blocks in a very tight memory buffer here. I'm questioning this whole preview blocks.aabb.view absolute coordinates thing. I'm gonna change this to preview blocks for now, but I don't think in the long run that makes any sense. But maybe it does, because the preview blocks are always going to be along the absolute view. They're always going to be in world space and not local space. They're not going to be like twisted around in local space. So we just need to keep rewriting references to the settled blocks, and then we're going to need to work on the block merge stuff. Yeah, this is actually going to be a pretty huge refactor. Probably going to be leaving the game in a broken state for a while. And that makes me deeply uncomfortable, but you know, sometimes that's what you have to do. So then end is when we transfer. So we need to write that. That's going to be the next thing we write. Once we get the first thing we should probably do is start getting the tiling system to play. I guess right now we don't actually need to do that. What we should do is check to make sure that we're separating out, that everything is working correctly within the preview block buffer. And then we can start working on transferring them back and forth to each other. And by back and forth, I mean transferring changes from the preview block layer to the settled or committed block layer. Okay, deselect. Whenever it says deselect, okay. Real blocks in. Yeah, okay, that's right. Shouldn't we be clearing the active? Oh, there's a thing here we should be doing. The active blocks thing should be getting cleared. Nope. Oh, shoot. We also need to be clearing in the select. I wonder if we should treat select the same way. Where when we're mid-select, like when we click and drag like we're doing a selection, maybe that should write to the block buff or the preview buffer. And then when we commit the select, it writes back to the select buffer. And then we treat it exactly the same as we treat placements. That's interesting. That's an interesting idea. I think let's start by doing that. So I think that's what we're going to do. I think I'm actually just going to replace every use of preview blocks with settled blocks for now. Or settled blocks with preview blocks. And then, so right now, let's find the rest of these. I should just replace all cases. Settled blocks. So we're just going to wipe out all the references to the settled blocks for now, and then we're going to add them back in as it becomes obvious how we transition back. That's the lazy way I'm going to do this, in such a way that we don't break everything completely. That's kind of a pointless exercise, but it should at least be safe. And then we can think about it a little more, because we do need to add some more stuff to make this transition back and forth work correctly. So let's see what I did. Diginanigans, if it helps, make a branch. Then if you want to demo it while it's broken, you can just switch branches to the working version. That's a good idea, Diginanigans. Hey, Duck. How's it going? Welcome in. This should, in theory, just work fine. Like, there shouldn't be any issues with this now because of the way I decided to do this. At the moment, the settled block buffer and the preview block buffer are totally interchangeable. Select is not working, so let's... Oh, I know why select's not working. I, like, purposely turned it off. I purposely turned it off because we actually haven't figured out how we're going to make that work. But all of this looks to be working just fine. Yeah, this seems to be fine. I want to change the cutaway rules sooner than later, but to do that, we need to fix the fill system. For some reason, the block fill system just doesn't run ever anymore. Or if it's running, it never seems to accomplish anything, which is a little concerning. It should eventually be running, but for some reason right now, it's just straight up not running. And the fill system is the one that does the floods fill and lets us know what's inside the ship versus outside the ship, which is useful for auto-tiling purposes for now. Eventually it won't matter, but for now it's quite useful for auto-tiling purposes. It'll be useful for other purposes, like handling atmospheric stuff like oxygen and fire and things like that. Like, we'll need that information. That might actually get put on the GPU as like a compute shader or something. We might end up doing that as a jump flood. Because my current naive flood fill algorithm is like, takes like 30 seconds or something like that. And even if, because it's got a big space to explore. And even if I can optimize that, it's unlikely that we're going to get it into like the millisecond territory. But if we use jump flood, we probably could do it. Again, sorry for just the sheer amount of noise outside my window. It's like kind of crazy. Maybe my AI noise canceling system's actually working. Who knows? By I mean Elgato's. All right, so let's re-enable selection. Oh, right. We decided this wasn't going to work because it only reads from one buffer. All right, so selection should work now. It does not. Interesting. Wonder why that is. I mean, it works from like, I can copy this and move it around. So like, it's working. It's just not rendering. Why is that? Wonder why that is. Oh. This is curious. Does it have to do with running this before output pack tile data? That shouldn't matter. The order of these things shouldn't matter. You use your own counts array. You clear grids. You need the tile data, but you should already have that. Is there any other weird system state we're using that would mess this up? The only thing I can think of is we can't do it in this order, which is strange. but possible, technically possible, that this cannot be done in this particular order. All right, so this is the settle buffer. Right now, we're not really using it for anything. I kind of want to do this thing I suggested where we make the span accessible from the struct, and we just grab it every time we recreate this buffer struct. I kind of want to try that. Is there a reason generate tile data would cause a problem, tile cell data? It shouldn't. I don't love this function. This is the only function I didn't really refactor except for fixing the doors a little bit. I changed the door logic a little, but I don't love this. I don't love the way I've done this, where like it's like if try get value, if bulk evaluates to hull. I don't love this. And then doing it 4 times for each neighbor that we care about. I want a more concise way of doing this. Down here, we just have nice, like, switch expressions. I guess this is an expression. Oh, no, it is. I like switch expressions. I think I like expressions in general. I guess we could maybe do this expression. It probably wouldn't fit onto one line. Not that it needs to, but... It's refactor week, so I'm as a trait, I'm letting myself fix all these little things that normally I feel like I should just push through and just accept, like this insanity, which is our door layer data, which is a ton of bitwise evaluations of things. I switched a little of this, but I'm not going to switch any more of it. All right, so why is this not working? Probably I messed something up here in the tool system. It's possible. It's possible. It's weird that it would work for pretty much every purpose except for this purpose. Oh, preview blocks.read only. Is that? Oh, no, that's right. I would like to restore that one function, but with that functionality before we do this other thing that I have in mind. But I'm not quite sure. Let's go to the select here. So why would this not work? Have something to do with the preview blocks.aabb? It shouldn't. These should be identical entities. Who even is creating these? You are. We're doing it here. I don't love that I'm doing it here in the ready function for the whole game. I would rather put stuff like this in the systems that own them. I need some kind of entity reservation process, though. Like, it shouldn't matter which entity we're reserving. Or, like, which ID we end up getting, but it would be cool if this was done on a... So these are being created identically, so there should be no problem there. There's no reason their AABBs would disagree with each other. We have no references to the settled blocks. We replaced every case with the preview blocks, so this should just work. And yet, it does not. So what if we messed around with this a little bit? What if we messed around with the function order? See if that fixes it. So what if we go through the whole initial step and then we do this part? Does that fix the thing? Or is there something more fundamental happening? So we do this. Let's just check. Okay, so now it works. So it really is a function. It's a call order issue. That's concerning. Don't mind the missing outlines here. I did this on purpose to illustrate a problem. Okay, so this works in this order. But if we do it in another order... If we do it in a different order, it no longer works. So we need to complete this process. For some reason, we need to complete this process first. Why? Let me go look here. It might be to do with this. Output.tools.count. Release pressed button. No. Where do we process this? Output.views. Here we go. While output.tiles.count is greater than 0, tiles is a tile map data pack. Output.tiles.dq. So does it matter what order we queue them in? It shouldn't. Nodes. Tiles.targetNode.call unpack tile map data. Tiles.packed data. It shouldn't matter. Shouldn't matter because we're passing in the target node as an argument of tiles here, or a property of tiles. Right now it's really dumb and we were just indexing into a list of nodes. This is really bad. We need to swap this out for like a like a node ID thing, like in our the way we have our world set up where we have like buffer IDs and entity IDs and stuff. We need like node IDs because the nodes don't live forever. They actually might die and we might get a different node because the part of the reason we have this all split off into C# is so that the Godot scene tree is just a lot cleaner. It's just only the things that needs to be rendered currently or things that need to be interacted with currently. Like, so the nodes are going to come and go. Some of them will. So we need a system that's more flexible, but let's not worry about that right now. It's my rallying cry. Stay on task. What I do want to know is why the order of this function matters. So it matters that whether we call update grid tile map data before or after either generate tile cell data or output pack tile map data. Let's just continue to mess around with the function order and figure out where we break this. We're going to try to insert it between these two. See if the generate tile cell data is the problem or if it's the next thing. We're going to find this. We're going to narrow down the problem here. So we just draw a floor and then we try to select. Okay, so it still works. It still works here. And then if we move this above this function, now what? If we try to do it before we generate tile cell data, I bet now it doesn't work. Okay, now it doesn't work. Interesting. Oh, because it depends on the tile cell data. I'm an idiot. I know that it depends on the tile cell data. Does it have to, though, would be my question. Yeah, so dumb. For each key in tiles.keys. So we need to coalesce all of the tiles together. Oh, that makes doing the overlay much easier than I thought. We operate on the tiles. We don't... Why are we referencing the block buffer then? So do we not need to iterate on the tiles? Could we go straight for the buffers? Yeah, then we have the same problem. Sorry. They've started to just drill straight up into my wall. I think they're working on the metal gate, which is just below me. All right, well, they seem to be quiet at the moment. So this is interesting. So we have tile. What do we do about the tile? So we check the tile layer. Interesting. So we don't bother to do an overlay, except we just overlay over every tile. That's interesting. But then we do our own calculation based on the neighbors. I feel like we don't need to do that. Couldn't we just imitate the tile, the actual tile atlas chords? Like we're recalculating the atlas chords all the time. Is that necessary? I wonder if we couldn't just imitate the tiles exactly. So that's currently how the textures are set up. So like this is like the selected, these are the selection tiles. Don't ask why there's so much space in the atlas. I thought I had a good reason. And then here's like the regular ones. So why aren't we just absolutely imitating? I guess I have slightly different autotiling rules for the selection than I do for the regular tiles. I think that's true. Okay, so we need to move this function again. All right, well, this is gross, but this is not the way I want to do this. I wonder if there's a way to incrementally, like, can I generate the tile cell data and then go back and generate the additional overlay? It's a separate thing. I mean, it is a separate thing. So maybe what I want to do is I want to get it to a point where you actually don't need the buffer data, or you don't need the tile data. I want to make it one or the other when you're doing the grid tile update, when you're doing the selection overlay stuff. I want it to make it so that you either read the tile data directly and you imitate it, or you calculate your own atlas coordinates and stuff like that directly from the buffer. We need to remove one of the dependencies, one of the two dependencies that this function has. And I'm not sure which one I'd rather remove. But we'll think about it for a minute. Hey, Foolbox, so many words you didn't understand in the sentence. No, the individual words. The trick is to make the individual words. Sorry, someone has taken an immense tool to my wall here. How's it going, Foolbox? You don't hear it? Okay, it's incredibly loud on my end, but you really don't hear this? Okay, we're just gonna carry on. The Elgato AI noise canceling clear voice thing is really good. It's like someone's taken is cutting through a steel post with like a table saw or something. It's and it's bolted into my wall, so it's just reverberating up. Okay, well, thank you for confirmation. How's it going, Connoisseur, SR? How are you doing, Fullbox? What have you been working on? Yeah, so there are different rules that I've got for the autotiler, right? For the selector version. I should try it while just using the same atlas chords. We should do an experiment real quick and see if we can get away with using the exact same. I guess no, we can't, because not all of this is set up exactly the same. Like, I'm pretty sure the door is set up differently from its atlas coordinates, but that we could fix. We could fix that. But I wonder. No, we can't. We can't use the same. No, I'm an idiot. We obviously can't use the same. Because, like, the edges are different. We have to calculate it ourselves. But if we're calculating it ourselves, why are we bothering to read the tile data? Why aren't we just recalculating the whole thing? That's a good question. That's a good question, Dave. Thanks for asking. So I think that's the dependency we can remove, is we don't actually need to refer to this generate tile cell data thing. We shouldn't depend on the output of this for printing out the overlays. Fullbacks, you're doing good. You're still working on the little ghost game. You're finishing up a contract. Want to see the new upgrade tree? Yeah. Post it. Diginanigans, noise canceling must be working amazing, because if you didn't know better, you'd say I'm making up stories. That is wild to me. Because this buzzing sound is louder than my own voice, like, as far as what I'm hearing when it's going. Like, I can't hear myself talk when it's going. Maybe it's all vibration, and I'm, like, feeling it through, like, my feet or something. I don't know. Who knows? Whatever. AI is good for something. And it seems like it's good for separating human voice out from surrounding noise. Which is great, because NVIDIA Broadcast is trash. In every dimension, it's trash. It uses like 30% of your GPU on idle, and it doesn't work. An NVIDIA Hitman is going to come and kill me. I probably shouldn't say stuff like that. All right, okay, so this is the ghost game. Oh, snap. Again, this is so juicy. You're a really great juice first development. I believe in juice driven development. I feel like juice is the first and most important thing to add to anything. It feels so good. Like, just the clicking on the UI. This looks so solid. Let me hit that with a like. I'm so bad at B-Sky. I have made no posts on B-Sky. I don't even lurk. I need to start using this, because I feel like at least if I want to interact with the developers, it's a good thing. I don't think any of this really reaches players, but it's a great way to show, you know, connect with your other developers, like Average Goob. And critics. I don't know, maybe you have a different opinion. Maybe you feel like these are maybe connecting with potential players. I don't know. People have told me that same argument for like why I shouldn't stream. They're like, "Oh, you're just streaming to other game devs." And I'm like, there's so many people who are also trying to make games that are also game players. So I don't know. Somehow someone taught you you should make IDD, intrigue driven development. Ooh, well, if you've got the intrigue, you just follow the ideas around. Yeah, juice forward. This is really cool. I'm enjoying this ghost game. I haven't played it yet. I should play it. I've just seen GIFs of it. Smooth in a second. It's a good reason. You get output and input. Any development should make people more curious. And Blue Sky is okay to test the market, you think? There's still gamers out there. Okay. I need to start doing it either way, even if it is just for networking amongst other devs. Okay, so this all currently works. So what I want to do, so there's this really annoying thing where currently, whenever I push a buffer, which is like, right now they're static, but eventually this is my dynamic buffer solution. So just an arbitrary block of data that I want to associate with something that gets passed around. So not a component. Just components have chunk-based storage. Under the hood, a buffer is still just a memory, just a byte memory thing. Like a memory with a capital M. But they're stored differently. And so what I want to do is, right now, it's awkward. The awkwardness is that even if I grab this buffer, so where's the buffer? So settled buffer, game.world.getComponent. So I call this getComponent, which gets me my component, which is a block buffer, which has a span on it. Then I also have to call the buffer and call either read-only or read-write. And read-only or read-write basically says, get me the read-only buffer or the read-write buffer. They're identical for this purpose. And then when we jump in here, we see the dreaded memory_marshal.cast byte to t. And this is the only, like, moderately expensive thing to do. And it's not that expensive, but it's, like, expensive enough that you don't want to just do this every time you ask for the buffer. So right now, I'm just pulling them both apart and just passing them in. Like, we're passing in the buffer and the blocks. But I would like to just pass the buffer and you can just get the span if you need it, without having to pay for multiple calls to the cast. And I think the best way to do that is to just set up, to just call that memory marshal cast in the constructor for the buffer when we construct a new buffer. That's what I want to do. It won't always work, but it would work most of the time. Like, it's not going to work when we create a buffer, but it will work when we just get the component. So I want to do that next as my next refactor. Full box, Twitch and stuff is mainly other devs, but game devs are generally also gamers. Yeah, that's my logic. I agree. So even if it's still your target audience, it will still bring you more wish lists than if you do nothing. Yeah, and game developers tend to be some of the more passionate gamers who are the ones more likely to, like, post a Reddit thread or do something. Like, yeah, I think it's a great audience to develop. And I think it's a big enough audience. The worst you can do is do nothing. You're so wise, Fool Box. I don't know why people put you in the Fool Box. It's probably the only box they had available. Con ASR, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. I hope you're having a great day. I appreciate the lurk, even if, you know, just hanging out. But I'd also like to hear how's it going. If you're working on anything, what brought you to the channel, etc. This is an opt-in community where, you know, I want people to feel comfortable enough to talk and say stuff. Well, I also want people to feel like they're not being pushed to, that they can just hang out and lurk quietly. This is supposed to be a chill co-working space. When I'm not yelling about something. You put yourself in the Fool Box? Okay. It's comfortable, to be honest. If you already call yourself a fool, no one has any insult they can use anymore. Yeah, that is the origin of all self-deprecating humor, right? It's like, well, this is how I think of myself. There's no way you can think worse of me than I already do myself. Checkmate. Self-esteem checkmate. Kane, you're developing to make a rich company richer in a cubicle while you wish you were making a living making games. Oof. I get it. I also have a day job. I usually do my day job, then I manage to sneak away for a few hours of game dev, and then I go back to my day job. So I feel it. My life is this kind of game dev sandwich where I have to do all of this stuff just to get the nice little bit in the middle. So I feel you. Glad you were able to make some time to hang out here. Hope you're able to make some time for some game dev soon. Full Box, that was you 4 years ago? Yeah, look at you now. You still doing any teaching, Full Box? Or managing to make do with like contract work and game sales and stuff. You used to be sad? I don't believe you. Now you're sad and poor? Oh, all right. Touche. All right, what did I say I was going to do? Oh, yeah, I was going to fundamentally change how the block buffer works. So what we want to do is we want to add like a property or something. We don't want to do this. We don't want to make it a function. Really. We want it to be like a property. I wonder when we can do this. We probably can't do this when we create the initial buffer, but anytime we get it back, what we need to do is we need to check to see if there's, so what's the process involved in creating a block buffer? So what we do is we say world.settleblocks equals world.createEntity. Okay, so we make the entity, then we add a buffer component to the entity. So this is the part that we are interested in. Add buffer component. Okay. I haven't touched the ECS code in a few months, and I'm already like, how does this work again? Full box, no teaching this semester. You couldn't grab that one while you were releasing Block Shop. That's fair. That's fair. Getting Block Shop out the door is huge. You're finishing a contract for an interactive game you made in Godot for an event right now. Should help a little. Nice, nice. I think the dev for hire thing is really cool. All right, so we add the buffer component, which is different than add component because we have this second type. We have a second type that we define, which is an iBuffer component. What does an iBuffer component require? A buffer ID, a length, and then the read-only. So we need to recreate these as properties, not as functions. These are properties that need to be available, and these are things that we need to... Maybe we just lazy... Can we initialize this lazily? Is that possible? So, like, if read-only is null... A read-only span is a struct, though, so it's never going to be null. I don't think it's a nullable struct. Read-only ref struct, read-only span t. No, we need to try to initialize it. I don't think we can lazily initialize it. Let's see. Let's go back and see what this process looks like. So we've created the entity, and now we're going to add a buffer component. Skywalk, not gonna lie, you search Block Shop, there's tons of things called Block Shop. So which is it? Oh, is that true? Block Shop game, oh, okay. Is there tons of things like Block Shop? I do try to talk about Block Bench, and sometimes I say Block Shop. So I would like to try Block Bench soon. I don't really have an excuse to try it though, except for like a game jam, and I feel like it would be... Oh, no, you're doing all right. You're like the second link after the textile company. For me, you're the second link. It's not bad. I thought for a second your SEO was going to be just really rough. Maybe that's probably because of my history, though. I bet if I incognito searched it, I would get a different result. Sounded like a tool. That's true. Yeah, I'm deeply concerned about that with Digital Iliad, but there seem to be almost no references to the Iliad on the internet. I haven't had a problem with it before, but yeah, I'm more and more concerned about SEO the more I think about it. Skywalk, if you only wrote Block Shop, you're not even on the first page. Oh, interesting, interesting. Yeah, okay, that's a cookies. That's a Google knows what I'm all about kind of thing. Oh well. Blockshop is number one in our hearts, if not on the Google search page. I think it's a great name, Foolbox. Search engines are dying anyway, right? Like AI is killing search, so who cares? Who cares about SEO? We'll care about the horrible thing that replaces it. All right. What were we doing? We're adding a buffer component. So buffer ID equals get next buffer ID. So we get a buffer ID. Okay. We don't return anything. So we get a buffer ID. We add the buffer ID to the memory map. This I need to work on. This allocate. This allocate needs to be... Right now it allocates value.length times component.types, component.size. So I pass in the size of the buffer that I want when I create it, right? Obviously I do that. When I create it, which I created here. So we say new block buffer board. Okay, so I do create it. I create it based on the size of the board. Okay, the game board. This is where my buffer kind of fails because it's a static buffer at the moment. Like it's not resizable. That's a major thing that we need to do. I don't consider that a refactor. That's like a major change, but we'll see. So what we want to do though is we do still want to change these functions to just be properties. Oh my god. Birdsong technology. We're getting the raid. We'll go to our welcome page here. Poolbox, it's why you obviously chose a better name for your next game. Scope creep. No way there can be confusion there. Oh yeah, scope creep. Hey Birdsong, I was lurking in your channel this morning. I didn't say hi because I was like crunching, but I saw you were live, and I got to see some of your stuff. Looks cool. I saw you grappling with third-person cameras in Unity, which gave me some flashbacks to camera work in Unity. I feel like the process for making a camera that works in Unity is you try, then you give up and you just install Cinemachine. There, you just install the Cinemachine camera. I think that's the way. Oh, you saw I was lurking. Oh, you sneak. Sneaky beaky Birdsong technology. Snooping on their lurkers. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for the raid. Welcome in, Raiders. Hi, Diehard. Diehard Vig. That's what it feels like. Something in a second. Oh, what a day. What a day of raids we're having. I think we stream at just the right time where all the morning people give up the ghost. Birdsong, you're trying to add a third-person mode to your already top-down game. Oh, interesting. Foolbox somehow called you out while you were lurking on their stream the other day. You don't really lurk there no more. Lurking is like incognito mode. It's like whatever makes you feel better about what you're about to do. Because nothing that you're doing is private, right? All right. Well, we're working... Sorry. Raiders, we're working on kind of an isometric 3D take on FTL faster than light. I don't feel really creative right now, so we're calling this Refactor Week, and we've been just making little improvements to existing functions and code in the game. Dapt, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Question for both of us. All right. Sounds good. Yeah, people, you're like just trying to lurk. And someone's like, we got Foolbox in the house. How's it going, Foolbox? Thanks for the lurk. No, yeah. If someone wants to tell you they're lurking, they can ! lurk, which I need to implement. I don't have a command for that. I don't know what I would tell people. But I'll be like, all right, we're loading you up into the transporter buffer. hold on to your pattern while you cease to exist for a little bit. Die Hard. Why is it devs that release these AA, AAA games neglect the ultra wide 31:9 ratio from games? 21:9. Birdsong, probably market share. There's a lot of work involved with making a game supported on ultra wide, and for such a small market share of users who use ultra wide monitors, it isn't worth the investment. I think it depends on what kind of game you're making. Because if you're making like a 3D game with like adjustable field of view and stuff like that, I think it's pretty easy to support something like that. But if you're doing what like I'm doing, which is like a 2D pixel art game, I don't know how to handle an aspect ratio like that. Like, what would I do? Just black bar the sides? I could probably support that aspect ratio. I might end up doing it. But it's definitely not going to be the desired, mainly because I do have camera controls, and there's probably going to be, your ship's probably going to be bigger than what you can see on screen at any one moment. But yeah, I would be deeply concerned about that. But yeah, I don't know. I wonder what the Steam hardware survey, ultra wide monitors. Steam hardware survey results. Let's look at monitors. All right, Steam hardware survey. You made a game that works on 21:9? Well, I mean, no one says you're not a fool. All right, primary desktop resolution. So there's primary and multi-monitor. Let's look at primary first. So you're talking about what, 5120 by 1440? Is this 21:9? 0.37% of surveyed users use that as their primary display. 55% of people use 1920 by 1080. What's kind of shocking is only 5% of people use a 4K monitor. 20% use a 1440. What about multi-monitor setup? Let's see multi-monitor. So for multi-monitor, okay, support. So a lot of people have a 4480 by 1440. Okay, 25% of people have one of these monitors. It's not their main, but they have one. That's pretty huge, actually. Is that 21:9? It must be, right? What was the other one? Okay. That's actually pretty big. I didn't realize that was that big. Oh, 3440 by 1440. Okay, let's look at that. 3440. That's not even on here. 44. There's this, 3840 by 1080. This is also pretty wide. 50% of people have a monitor that's 3840 by 10. Okay, ultra wide is various flavors of ultra wide. Maybe that's part of the problem, just how many flavors of ultra wide there are. This feels crazy wide. All right, we're getting the calculator out. I want to know what some of these ratios are. I'm totally not, you know, distracting myself from work here. Multi-setup. So are you telling me this is like the resolution of all of their monitors combined? Is that what you're telling me? I thought this would just be, I have a monitor that is this resolution. All right, well, let's go back to the primary monitor thing then. 3440 by 1440 is 3%. That's pretty rough. 3840 by 2160 is 5%. That's not that bad, honestly. But still, 55% to 1080p. Actually, this isn't ultra wide. This is just 4K. But 3440 by 1440. So it's even less than... Interesting. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I don't know how to read the hardware survey. I thought this was like all the different resolutions that you have. But yeah, I guess it makes sense that this is like your combined multi-monitor resolution. How is this a useful metric? How is that even useful? What does this imply? That people have... So if the most common one is 3840, does that imply that people just have... Most people have two 1920 by 1080s? I guess that was what that implies. Okay, that's lame, but okay. But yeah, so I guess the market penetration thing is a good argument. Well, that was illuminating. Yeah, I think I'm only going to support 16 by 9 and 16 by 10. Because 1920 by 1080, 2560 by 1440, 3840 by 2160. Altogether, that's like... So that's what? 55 plus 20 plus 5, about, approximately. That's like 80%. Yeah, that's 80% coverage. So you get 80% coverage if you're only supporting 16 by 9. And then, yeah, you probably want to support 16 by 10. Mainly because Steam Deck is 16 by 10, isn't it? Steam Deck resolution. Steam Deck resolution is 1280 by 800. That's 16 by 10, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah, I'll probably support that resolution at least. Birdsong, you couldn't tell me. Maybe it's like taking 3 monitors and blowing it all out to one big display instead of 3 distinct displays. Yeah, I don't think that's supported either, because I think they're maybe combining the vertical but adding the horizontal. I don't know what they're doing. That's very weird. Because like my main monitor is 4K, so it's whatever, 3840 by 2160. And then I have a secondary monitor that is 2560 by 2880. So I don't know what my result of that survey would be. It would probably be the 2560 plus the 3840, and then it would be they'd have that probably by X 2880 or whatever, because that's the tallest monitor I have. I don't know. Yeah, this feels like a almost useless metric the way they've done it. Good to know most people have, or half of people have 2 1080p monitors. Diehard, thanks for sharing that. You had no idea 1080p was still popular in 2025. I know, it's kind of shocking that 20% of people have moved up to 1440 and only 5% of people have moved up to 4K. Kind of interesting that almost as many people have chosen ultra wide as they've chosen 4K. That's crazy. That's crazy. I get so annoyed when people are in Discord video sharing and they have ultra wide and like multiple people are sharing, and I'm like, these don't cooperate with each other. But yeah, I think 16 by 10 and 16 by 9 are, if you support those 2 resolutions, you get 90% coverage, and then everything else is whatever. Three 3% of people still have 1366 by 768. What's that even mean? That's almost as many people as have ultra wide. All right, well, that was a fun diversion. What am I doing? Oh yeah, I'm trying to understand how my own code works. The worst thing a person can do. Try to understand how code works that they wrote 3 months ago, 4 months ago. That's wild. So a lot of RTX 5090 owners playing at 1080p. Yeah, that's crazy. Maybe people are going for refresh rate nowadays over resolution. I don't know. I mean, that's definitely the argument the 50X, the 5X series is making. Is like you want to be, you know. I don't know. I guess that doesn't make any sense because they do a lot of upscaling. And the upscaling doesn't really make sense. Like all the upscaling that they're doing on the new graphics cards really only makes sense if you've got like a 4K monitor. And then they're also doing like the frame hallucination stuff. So it's interesting. I don't know a lot about that stuff. Birdsong. Many GPUs aren't beefy enough to run AAA games on 4K, so you can understand people playing AAA on 1080p. Yeah, and yeah, that's also why. That's why they're doing that kind of stuff. Smooth in a second. You'd love extra side monitor support that could hold like stats and menus. Oh yeah, what's the best game that did that? Supreme Commander. Maybe not Supreme Commander 1, but at least Supreme Commander Forged Alliance. You could play it on 2 monitors, and if you did that, you'd have the main monitor playing the game, and then your mini-map would be on your second monitor. But because it's Supreme Commander, the mini-map is like a full-blown, high-resolution map. That's the only time I've seen multi-monitor support in a game done well. That's not like a Nintendo handheld game. Yeah, that was super rad. I haven't seen anyone else do that in an official supported way. Smooth in a second for my game, like ship details on the side for all ships, friendly and enemy, maybe a big square map. Things that could not be monitor size dependent. Yeah, that'd be really interesting if you could do that. I think managing multiple windows like that for an application is like pretty hard. All right, so we're trying to understand the process here. So when we call world.addBufferComponent, we don't actually get. Do we actually create a block buffer at any point here, or are we just buffer ID? We record a buffer ID. We get a next buffer ID. We add. We get the archetype from the source, the destination archetype. Get archetype with component. So we move the entity from one archetype to another. We copy the entity with this new component added. Value with buffer ID equals buffer ID. So here we create a block buffer. We also create a block buffer here. New block buffer board. So in these cases, we can't. Trying to access the read only and the read write would be literal garbage. Like it would be it would just not work. So we need some kind of lazy initialization or something so that these constructors don't have to have access to it. Maybe we do make it a function and we just are conscious about, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And it's a stack. It's a variable on the stack because it's a span. So we can't just hold on to it. Doom or Duke Nukem had a similar thing. You had a second monitor in that era. That's possible. I don't remember that. If you could afford it. Yeah. Birdsong, anywho, thought you'd raid out to another indie game developers team member. Oh yeah, I saw that. Welcome to the team. I saw you join the team this month. Got to take care of some life things like putting food. And yeah, thank you for the lurk. Thanks for the raid. Thanks for the lurk. Diginanigans, likely laptops for the 1360 something by 768. That's probably true. I'm never surprised when I see how many people are on these old devices still playing, like, you know, World of Warcraft or whatever. Counter-Strike. Whatever the old heads, their old computers are playing. Doom. This has to be a copyrighted song. I feel like I've heard this. Yeah, this is like a popular song. Better not get copyright stricken with this. All All right, Pretzel. I'm trusting you. All right, so this is what we need to do. So we either need to make it so that we can copy entity with component. There's no way around that, right? Like, we need to pass an actual component in here, right? So copy entity with component, t value, first available slot. Chunk entity. Wow, I haven't touched any of this in so long. For each component in composition, and then chunk list type flag dot add component value. Yeah, I don't think there's a way around this. Add component t value. Destination chunk is the last chunk. Component t dot set component. Destination chunk, destination item count value. Chunks destination component with item count dot item count plus 1. Yeah, that's kind of just how it's done, isn't it? Static void set component. Read write. Oh, we're calling the read write thing, huh? So we're even using that here. Okay, so there's two cases. We got add starting. There's two cases I want to worry about. All right, so the two cases I need to worry about are this initial one where we're just saying new block buffer board. We're basically initializing a block buffer and giving it a size, which we could possibly get away with not doing it that way, but that makes it way more consistent with add component, which does also take an actual component type value. I'd rather do that. Yeah, it's way more straightforward if we do it like this. Oh, what we could do is we could say, if you don't have a buffer ID, don't do that. So we could basically initialize the buffer ID, because we don't require a buffer ID to create a block buffer. So what we could say is that over here, get rid of some of these scripts here. Oh, so many things I opened. All right, so we get our block. So buffer ID get init. So we could give this a default value. And then if it's that default value, which can't be 1 or 0, because that won't work, because that's a valid... maybe buffer ID already has... Oh, yes. Buffer ID already has a -1 default value. Thanks, Past Dave. Thanks, Past Self, for writing this well. Or if not well, adequately. Oh, yeah, we're in ads. I'm going to go get some water. I'll be right back in like a minute. All right, I'm back. I took the opportunity to sit down. Tired. I usually stand during streams, but we're gonna close this out from a seated position. Hopefully, yeah, the green screen is good. Cool. And I got some more water. Drink some water. How's everyone doing? All right. All right. So what we're gonna do? So basically, we're gonna say we're gonna switch from. We're gonna make an explicit constructor. Or we could have a constructor. We could make this even simpler, where we could say we could have a constructor that fires only when a block buffer is initialized with a buffer ID. We could do either. And that would protect us. So like the value with buffer ID equals buffer ID. This version can call read only, read write, read only or read write, because it knows it has a buffer ID to pass to the world, which the world is, I don't have an entity manager. And that's because I don't really foresee needing multiple worlds. So I don't really have a entity manager that can negotiate that. But you know, if we end up in that kind of a position where I want multiple worlds, we could do that. That feels like one of those things that like you don't necessarily need. So I've just all of the functions that you would put on an entity manager, I've just put directly on the game world. Like create entity, add component, get component, all that stuff. Enjoying this chill jazz station, though. Oh, we can refactor this getter default and remove the span, because this is how stupid it is that we don't have the span accessible on the buffer itself. When we ask for a get or default, like get me the block or get me an empty block, we have to pass in the span that we want to use. That's so stupid. Yeah, I want to change this. All right, so what we're going to do instead is we're going to have public read-only span block read-only. I don't know if I want to call it read-only span. I don't feel like I need to do that. Field cannot be of ByRef-like type system.readOnlySpan unless it is an instance member of a ref struct. This isn't a ref struct. It's just a record struct. Why isn't it a ref struct? Why can't it be a ref struct? I don't remember why it can't do this. All right, we're going to figure this out. they're back to just drilling into another part of my floor here. Which is alarming to me, but I'm glad that none of you can hear this. Alright. Ref struct. C#. Let's remember how a ref struct works. What's the main requirement of a ref struct? Instances of a ref struct type are allocated on the stack. Can't escape to the managed heap. That should be fine, right? Ref struct can't be the element type of an array. Fine. Maybe not fine, actually. A ref struct can't be declared type of a field or a class. How are we storing this again? How are we storing stuff on the chunk? Because components, my components are ref structs, aren't they? Like if I go game, component, whichever one, position. Oh, public read-only record struct. Okay, so these can't be ref structs. Probably because the way I'm storing them in the chunks. Component, chunk. I don't know. A chunk is just a memory byte buffer with an item count, and then it's being I feel like this should be doable. Hey, Matthew Sparks. Yeah, it's Wednesday, my crew. That's my joke. We're making a game about naval combat in space. Y'all are my crew. Yeah, 13. Thank you for the follow. Really appreciate that. Hope you're having a great Wednesday. All right, so when we add a component, whether we're adding component value or add a copy component from, chunk is, we get the last chunk, we say component t.set component, destination chunk, destination item count, value. So when we do that, we say destination chunk, item value. So we get the read write. We literally get the thing from the buffer. Oh no, we write the value into the... This should be... We should be able to do these as ref structs. They're not being put on the heap. They're being converted to byte form. Oh no, maybe they are being put on the heap. Equals value. Yeah, okay. They can't be ref structs. I would have to, like, do this differently, I think. Okay. So, really, is the entity ID? Yeah, they're all record structs. Okay, so how do we do this without making it a ref struct? Record struct. Field cannot be of... Okay, so you can't just store this on here. That's the thing. That's the annoyance of this, which is why I did it this way. And I just held on to it. That's frustrating. Yeah, maybe there is no real way around this except to just pay the cost. Which is not ideal. Let me think about this for a moment. I mean, it makes sense that we can't just pack this in here. What if I treated it a little differently? What if we made a different thing? What if we made some kind of like, I don't know. I could see a version of this where you make a temporary like ref struct version of it that's like an active buffer, where you can take advantage of all of the data. Like you just take the block buffer and you make like a ref version of it, a ref struct version of it. Like it can convert itself into a ref struct. It seems doable. I don't know if it's worth it though. I'm trying to avoid this annoying thing where you have to get the buffer and get the span and then pass them around together. Like you have to pass around the span. Like even here, this is trying to get a block from its own span and you have to pass in the span. Or you just pay the cost. I don't know, maybe I'm overblowing the cost. How expensive is this? MemoryMarshal.cast. My instinct is that it's not devastating, but it is expensive enough that we shouldn't just do it all the time. It has a cost because often the type that it's casting from is a different size than the cost that it's casting to. So there is a cost associated with that. Like byte to T could be anything. All right, and so the byte array has way more values associated with than the type array. All right, so this person is explaining. They're looking at a thing about array iteration and how quick it is to iterate through arrays of longs. And someone suggested that they use MemoryMarshal.cast. So they're suggesting that they vector span, previous vector, vector long. So they cast from long to a vector long. Okay, so they're trying to attempt to some like SIMD stuff or something like that. And that's fast. And I don't really care about this because that's not what we're doing. What I'm interested is this person did some digging into MemoryMarshal.cast. And it has a link to a file that no longer exists. So, oh, there used to be a MemoryMarshal.fast. Oh. Where my memory marshals at? Memory marshal. Why not benchmark the cost? Because I'm lazy, and if someone already did it, I don't want to have to do it. Cast. We want span cast. We want this one. We want to understand this one. Understandable. Yeah, you have a good idea, Skywalk. If I really start to worry about it, I would do that. We're trying to be lazy. We're trying to be both lazy and optimal. It's a really fine line to walk in life, to be both lazy and optimal. It requires a delicate touch. So we would literally never hit the same size case because we're always converting from byte to something else. Special case for byte size t from minus this. Hey, Benaka Colaris, welcome in.
Illogical.
And truly, that's what we try to do. That's what we try to achieve here. Welcome in. How are you doing? All right. I don't think we generally hit the worst case. All it is this ref unsafe as t from t2 ref span dot pointer value to length. This is maybe way cheaper than I give it credit for. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's cheap enough that we just don't care about it and we go. You go first. What is going on? Ah, okay. I didn't have to look up that word. We're refactoring some code. We're calling this refactor week. We're generally working on an FTL-like in isometric 3D. I'm casting code string and worried of the cost. It's a little different, but yeah, what we're doing is, so we have a chunk system, like how long the incantation is. Yeah, you know, you have to invoke the name of the elder god that you're trying to summon, and that has a cost. Man, I created a lot of issues trying to just change one thing. All right, so we're gonna just accept. We're gonna undo all of this here. Let's make these errors go away. So we have an entity component system. We store everything in chunks, in memories of byte. So whenever we get a memory, so whenever we get a component or anything out of that, we convert to, and this same logic applies to our buffers. So when we need a read-only buffer, we actually have to say game.world.get read-only buffer block. So we specify the type. And when we get a buffer or a component out of a chunk, we cast it from its storage in byte form. You know, do we not need to cast this in byte form? Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Unless we want separate storage for every type. So that we can have, so to make our components play nice with each other, we store everything in byte form, and then we cast it to its type. And it's just, there is a cost to that, but from as far as I can tell, cost is negligible in most cases. So we've been avoiding paying that cost by whenever we invoke a buffer, like here I say settled buffer is, I get the component, which is like the component that holds the reference to the buffer. And then I get the actual span out of the buffer component. And then we end up just passing around the buffer and its span everywhere. But, you know, how much more expensive is it to call this once versus calling it 3 times, right? I think there maybe are some cases where I'm worried about calling it all the time. Let me think if there's a case where I'm worried about calling it all the time. I don't think there is. Maybe some of the place blocks in. No, because we just get the span first and then we do all the for each stuff. Yeah, so I think it's cheap. I think since I'm too lazy to benchmark it, I'm gonna come to the conclusion that it's cheap enough that we can afford it. If it starts to seem like it's not cheap, so cheap that we can afford it, I will benchmark it. It's C#, yeah. Can't you index them so you do not have to cast? You know what I'm doing, never C#. Am I doing ECS with Godot? Yeah, I have an ECS that I wrote in C#. Don't ask me why. I wrote it in C# because I'm more familiar with C# and I'm a little baby person when it comes to C++. If I was any good, I would just use Flex, and I would get a Godot extension with Flex. I wonder. I'm gonna look it up right now. Has anyone actually bothered to write GD extension Flex Godot? I bet someone already has it. GD extension C++ Flex. Yeah, someone did it last year. Someone already did this. But this wouldn't solve everything for me. I'd still need to work out my systems. We arguably don't need this much performance either. I feel like I've looked at this repository before, but I'm just going to star it and go back and look at it. Yeah, it's old. It's old and currently unsupported, so I would end up needing to write my own probably. It's got the unlicensed license. So I guess I could just start working off of their stuff. But yeah, I'm a weakling when it comes to doing that sort of work. So it was easier for me to just write my own. Did I see the big news? No, I didn't see it, Foolbox. Matthew Sparks, that is single-handedly the most important line to walk throughout your professional... Oh, yeah, you're talking about my... walking the line between laziness and optimal, yeah. Matthew, you've been assuming this entire time the Flex extension doesn't exist. Yeah, it's 2 years without update, so it would probably work with maybe Godot 4. Ben, what is the point of ECS with Godot? Oh, yeah, Foolbox. I was there. I was there when Adam Scott ran the first C# web hello. Actually, I wasn't. I missed that talk. I was like, I think I was at a Dunkin' Donuts down the street. But I was in the vicinity of the first C# hello world web build thing that they demoed at GodotCon in Boston. Yeah, that looks fun. Ben, the point of an ECS with Godot is because I'm trying to do this thing where I've separated... happens a lot of times in games, and it's kind of nice when you can achieve it. I've separated the simulation data and layer. The whole simulation is separate from the rendering and the UI. So we've separated the input and the rendering stuff from the simulation. So only things that need to be rendered and need to be interacted with are in the Godot scene tree, which means our simulation can be run very lightweight in .NET land. That we don't need any association of anything. We're not trying to run all this crazy stuff in GDScript. How was it? It was really great. I'm definitely going to go next year. It was very cool. It was relatively small. There was probably only like at most maybe like 100, 200 people there. Maybe a couple hundred tops. It was a really nice event. Okay, it's a back-end, front-end, and separation of concerns. Yeah, you could think of it that way, pretty much. Why it's in C#, we've already discussed. It's not great. Skywalk. Can't you index them so you don't have to cast? Even indexing them, you still have to cast. So, because the index is based... I mean, I guess I get what you're saying. You index into it as if it's bytes, and then just pull out... Just go to get a span of the byte array and then like do it yourself. I don't know. Span is really good and really fast. And so is all the memory owner stuff. So at the moment, it makes more sense to just use their intended workflow with memory owner and span and all that thing. Because this is a managed language and we shouldn't really be going too crazy down that rabbit hole. Ideally. But yeah, for now, because this isn't a performance, this isn't ECS just to get the raw performance. If it was ECS for the sake of performance, we would be doing this in C++ as a GD extension. This is partly for me just an ECS for organizational reasons, because I like the design, because I'm making the system and I don't yet know all the components I'm going to need. I like being able to have everything be modular with components and systems and stuff. And it just seemed like a framework that I understood that I could use. So we're going to try that. And yeah, in the spirit of that, because we're unwilling to benchmark this, we're just going to start. We're just going to start doing this. Okay, so we're going to. So like this reference to span here with this getter default. So let's look at this. This is a great example. Getter default. We have a bunch of uses of getter default all in a row. So here, getter default. So we're doing this all the effing time. This is actually a great example. So we have this block buffer. We go through each layer. So here's our problem. We could getter default on 64 by 64 by 8. So that's 30,000 calls to getter default. If we need to get the span 30,000 times, that's not great. Which is why we pass in the span here. So maybe that's not a great case for just eating the call. But maybe when we're passing it in here, in like the derived deck layer stuff, maybe this is a good case where we just don't worry about it and we get the span in the function call. Because then we're just getting the span 3 times instead of once. But if the choice is between getting the span 3 times or once, that's fine. That's trivial. If the choice is getting the span 32,000 times versus once, we should probably err on the side of once. Even if it's awkward, even if it introduces some awkwardness, which is why I was trying to store a reference to the span on the block buffer struct itself, so that when we created the struct, it would just store a reference to its span. But I understand why I can't do that. What we could potentially do... No, storing a reference to the memory wouldn't help. Actually, maybe that would help. Nice, you might be there next time if you're lucky. You're going to be in... if you're lucky, it's going to be in Montreal, as you know, the US. Yeah, I think it'll be in Boston again. But hopefully. Hopefully we get more, just more of them. It sounds like they'd be willing to run more than one a year. C# would not be your choice in this architecture if you would need best computation performance on back end. Yeah. Me either. There's still an argument to be made to like rewrite this whole thing. But this is one of those things. It's like, if I was making an engine, if I was making a game engine, I would put a lot of effort into this, into making sure it's right and good, because an ECS is a good choice for a game engine. Because an ECS is a good choice when you don't know what the end user is going to do, which is why you see it a lot in game engines, right? That's a good choice. However, if you do know exactly how you're going to use that system, like I do because I'm making my own game, ECS is not the best choice. Because I can just predefine all of the components. Like, I don't need that flexibility, that like I don't know what the user is going to do kind of flexibility. So kind of questionable that I did it this way. I could have done things a different way, but we'll see. I'm trying not to just sunk cost explain it away. I am willing to refactor the whole thing if it makes sense. But right now we're just going to carry on. Because currently it doesn't matter. And you know what? It might never matter in terms of performance. I might never need that kind of performance. Architecturally, it would probably be a lot cleaner. Ben, in my case, you would maybe not do ECS, but just object-oriented domain model, maybe with hexagonal architecture. You know a lot more about this than me. I'm familiar with doing an ECS in C# because I spent like 3 or 4 years doing Unity game dev with their data-oriented tech stack and their entity component system. That's what got me into it. And they use kind of the high-performance C, limited aspect of the language. But they're doing a lot of stuff under the hood to make it like acceptably fast. Whereas I'm just kind of doing it. I'm just kind of messing around. I've never built an entity component system before. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe we just become more willing to just call in and take the hit and get the buffer. Because yeah, there really is no way to just hold on to it. There's no way to do it without making the block buffer a ref struct, and I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can do that unless I can figure out a way. I have to change the way I'm storing it if I do that. Which maybe I can do. If we could just make all of these components ref structs, then we can just hold references to stuff like here because they just exist on the stack. That might actually work. I just have to think about the implications of that on the chunk memory storage system. Yeah, my experience with Unity and ECS, that's why I'm doing it this way. Even though it's kind of questionable. Because at the end of the day, we're not making a huge game. We're making a game like FTL, right? It's a bit bigger than FTL. The boards that I'm considering using is bigger, and I'm considering having more than 1-to-1 ship encounters. So there might be ship encounters with like 3 or 4 ships. But that's still like tiny. Like that's still tiny in terms of game performance. So maybe it's okay. I don't know. It's hard to benchmark a game before you've made it, you know? So we're just doing the best we can. Because you can benchmark stuff in isolation that doesn't actually make sense. So I want to think a little bit more. Thank God it's refactor week, or I wouldn't feel like I'd be justified in looking at this closely. Let's look at the chunks. So let's look at the chunk list. So we've got our chunk list, which is a class, which is fine. And that has a list of chunks. And a chunk is just a memory. So this is why, so the chunk itself can't be a ref struct because it's got this memory deal. I'm pretty sure. Watch if I try to put a ref here. Oh, does this just work? Can it be a ref struct? That seems wrong. But okay. I guess a memory is just a struct. It's not like a crazy... It's just a continuous region of memory. Maybe we can keep... Maybe what we can do is we could keep a copy of a memory T. And so we pull it out and we just hold it in memory T form, and then we just do memory.span. And we just pull the span from the memory. That might actually be cheaper than what we were planning on doing. What is your exact comprehension of ECS advantages and drawbacks? That's a trick question. The primary performance advantage of an entity component system is potentially cache utilization. But there's a tremendous number of caveats involved in that. I like it in terms of the drawbacks are also huge. Maybe not in terms of performance, but organizationally there's a lot of drawbacks. But I like it for organization. I like doing things with systems and entities and components, especially when I'm making a game I've never made before, and I'm thinking of new components and systems that manage them. So we've picked an ECS as much for organizational reasons as for raw performance reasons. Actually, I would say we picked it more so for organizational reasons. But I'm not an expert. I'm a generalist, I wouldn't even, I mean, I guess I'm more of a programmer than anything else, but I'm also doing the art and the sound and the design. So it's one of those things where it's like, I don't have the expertise of a game architect programmer. Like, I'm not going to make good choices in the same way that they might. Okay, so the chunks can be what they are. We get our memory pool. So we grab our shared memory pool. We rent out our memory. We have our memory. Our new chunk. New chunk. iMemory.owner.memory. So we get the chunk. We get the memory. Okay, so the chunks are not the problem. Fullbox making good choice is for losers or game devs. Yeah, the process of making a game is almost like asking how many bad choices can you make and still end up with something good? How many questionable choices can you make? All right, we are running up on time. I have a meeting right at 2, which is in 15 minutes. I want to think more about this. I'm really tempted to set up a system where the span is available on this. We don't care about this anymore. Where the span is available on the buffer struct. And I think I have an idea of how to do that, but we need to double check the way we're recording components. So this part, this add component value, T value, this part, component T set component, destination chunk, destination value. So this storage step, I feel like is potentially giving us some problems. I don't see how though. So read write. Maybe what we need to do is we need to convert this rather than calling the read write here and storing this. No, because that's the way we could do what Skywalk is saying, where we think about the indexes and the offsets and we operate on the bytes directly. We could do that. We avoid the conversion. It's just so much easier if we do the conversion to the type that we want. It saves us so much trouble. Maybe there's still a way to do this and have the components be ref structs. I guess I need to read the ref struct requirement list a little more closely. Cannot be boxed to system.value type or system.object. Can't be declared type of a field of a class or a non-ref struct. That's maybe a... No, that should be fine. Because it's not. It's not... This isn't happening. We're going out of our way to avoid this. So I guess we need to make sure that we're not doing this. Or this. I don't know. I think there's a possible way forward here. I need to think about it more. Ben, it's been awesome talking to you in chat. I really like having people in here who know their stuff. Not like full blocks. Just kidding. I like when some of the wiser fools come in and help tell me what's what with some of this stuff. But the juice, you are the wisest amongst us in terms of like your understanding of juice, of applying the game juice. Stay juicy, my friend. Yeah, Ben, it's super cool to have a programmer in here. I never even got to ask what kind of stuff you were working on. But yeah, you seem like a proper programmer. So welcome into the channel. I appreciate the follow. We stream pretty much every day, Tuesday through Saturday, around this time. So yeah, it'd be super cool. I appreciate everyone who followed today, everyone who hopped in. All the raids from Birdsong and Sorcery Story. I gotta get ready for this meeting. So I'm probably gonna go. But like I said, this week is refactor week. I'm just kind of giving myself a week to kind of think about some of these problems without feeling the pressure to always be working on new features. I feel like a lot of times there is just that pressure to be working on a new feature, and that prevents you from reevaluating some of the work you've done. Because you're just like, I have to be doing something new. I can't I can't look back. I can't go back. Like, some of it's sunk cost fallacy. Some of it's like feeling like you need to be always making progress and you can't ever regress. But that pressure is real. And we kind of got to just ignore it sometimes. Take care. Thanks to Shenanigans. Yeah. Appreciate all the new faces here today. I want to say thank you all so much for watching. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
Maximum warp.
Oh yeah, Ben's here. Ben came in with the actual correct definition of what makes an ECS good, which is that ECS is better when managing a really big number of entities because it co-locates all data in memory and thus favors CPU and memory caching performance. I might have oversimplified it when I just said cache utilization, but yeah, that's a longer and more correct answer. Thanks again, Ben. Hope to see you next time. Hope to see you all next time. Yeah. That's the postscript. Bye. Again.